What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I put a brand new video. Now, in this video today, it's going to be a mock draft Monday, 7-round mock draft. No trades. Did this one on PFF. The Draft Network is still, I may end up subscribing to the premium just because I think it's by far the best. But it was pretty interesting overall. I just want to say, they've definitely updated their draft boards because players that I used to take, for example, Dwayne McBride, didn't draft him in this draft. They had him in the third round as oh, you got to take this guy. And I was like, wow, he's normally I'm way over drafting him in the fourth round. It always says, but now it was he was gone. So this one I also did. I talked about it last week. I felt like every mock draft was resulting in the same players because I was drafting corner and I was going by a specific algorithm. And I was like, hey, we're going to change that up. I'm going to force myself to take a wide receiver first because I know a lot of people believe in wide receivers. So let's go with the wide receiver first sort of mock draft. If you have other drafts that you want me to sort of do where it's hey, what if the Ravens end up going with, best, do a true best player available draft like the Ravens typically do, or do a draft where you want me to take kind of a wild card, take an edge rusher, an offensive lineman first, and see how I kind of scramble to pick everybody else up. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know your mock drafts, players that you want me to look out for, your thoughts on the players that I draft. But let's get into it with the first pick in for the Baltimore Ravens, round 1, pick 22. A couple of wide receivers were available. Flowers, Downs, basically everybody behind those guys in overall wide receiver rankings. And I ended up going with Jalen Hyatt because I really believe that the Ravens could benefit from a deep passing game. And I love Jalen Hyatt's game. I've watched the other guys and I feel like I'm not a huge fan of Flowers. Not saying he won't succeed, not saying I don't believe in him, but for the Ravens, I just don't know if he's the exact type of guy. I have questions as to how he's going to be able to separate in the NFL. Also, his body size is very small, as is Downs. Jalen Hyatt is a vertical threat. Absolutely came onto the scene last year and dominated the SEC. I think he could be a really versatile piece to kind of give Todd Monken as, hey, you have Bateman who can keep the medium, intermediate routes. Send Jalen Hyatt deep. And then you can use Devin Duvernay in the slot. I think that'd be a really unique offense to try and watch. And so I feel like that was the best pick if we're going wide receiver. I'm not taking Jalen Hyatt over a couple of other wide. I'm not taking Hyatt over Jordan Addison. I'll say that right now. Round 3, pick 86. I feel like if we go wide receiver, we have to go cornerback next. Clark Phillips was available. If Clark Phillips is available in the third round, that is the greatest draft fall of all time. That is Orlando Brown Jr. level of draft falling. He's not going to go in the third round. I think he'll go early second. He could go late first. That dude is an absolute baller. So I didn't want to pick him because I felt like the draft would look way too good if we picked him. And so I was looking at the other cornerbacks that they had. Jones out of Texas A&M. There were a couple of other guys. I ended up going with Kyu Blu Kelly. And Kyu Blu Kelly is a guy that I've watched a lot. Stanford cornerback. And you guys know, I'm not trying to go all in on my, favorite players in the draft, but Kyu Blu Kelly is a really solid draft prospect. He's someone that came in as a freshman and was instantly recognized by, the national media attention. It was wow, who is this guy? Because he came on running man-to-man, and he was the only player on Stanford's defense. If you went up against Stanford, you just weren't going to his side because everywhere else was so bad. But he did a great job throughout his career. Did he have some games where it wasn't 100%? Yeah, but he also had so many plays where he's jumping routes, swatting passes. It's difficult to get, completions on him. And I feel like opposite Marlon Humphrey, he'd be a really interesting player to have. Not the greatest athlete in history, but he's physical, very good in man coverage. And I think he could be a good asset to the Ravens. Next up, round 4, pick 125. I went wide receiver again. I went with Iosivas. I drafted him last time. I find him very fascinating because I think if we got Iosivas as well as Jalen Hyatt, we would have two instant, true speed threats. Iosivas was actually a heptathlon star over at Princeton. I believe he placed 4th at the NCAA championships in the heptathlon. Great 60-yard dash, decent 100 great 60-meter dash, decent 100-meter dash, very good broad jump, and basically a great athlete. 6'3", great size, ball skills. What's lacking is the route tree. You know what? You don't need much for a route tree if you're running straight. He's a deep threat. That is what the Ravens would be bringing him in to do: deep threat, jump balls, and that sort of thing. I think he could be a decent number 4 and definitely a developmental piece for Todd Monken and the Ravens offense to figure out, hey, we can really use something with this guy. He can really take it to the next level. Next up, I was looking at the running backs that are available. There was Muhammad Ibrahim, there was Vaughn, there was the running Israel. I can't even pronounce his name out of Pitt. There were a lot of guys, and then I was like, wait a minute, is this guy available? And he was, and it was Mr. Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh is a guy that I really liked. In my first mock draft, I believe I drafted him before we even had Monken, and I looked at him and I was like, wow, this guy's explosive. Get this ball in the hands of Kenny McIntosh in the passing game, very good in the passing game, and also just in the run game. He's got great burst, great speed, and very explosive playmaking ability. And now we have his former offensive coordinator coming to the Baltimore Ravens. We did it last year with drafting David Ojabo and hiring Mike McDonald. I think we could do the same thing with Kenny McIntosh because he would come in and be the number 2. I expect Gus Edwards to be cut or traded. He would come and be the number 2, just like he was at Georgia, and be that pass catching back. And, it wouldn't be a true one, split carry, but he would get volume and he would get opportunities, but it would still be JK's backfield. Kenny McIntosh is a really interesting person to go after in this draft, just because it's like, we don't know exactly what Todd Monken is going to try and do with his offense, but I think he wants to throw the ball. Let's get a pass catching running back. Finally, round 6, pick 200, I went with B.J. Thompson out of Stephen F. Austin. If you don't know B.J. Thompson, he is a freak athlete with actual sack production. He's somebody that, he could run. I think he's going to run like 4.5. He could run 4.4. He's huge. And he had, I believe, 10-plus sacks at Stephen F. Austin last year. He's one of the most productive edge rushers in the class. And he also is a freak athlete with very, very high ceiling and development potential. A lot of people are upset about, drafting David Ojabo, or not drafting Ojabo, drafting Odafe away, where it's like, oh man, this is a project. We don't want to draft projects early. It's okay to draft projects late. And BJ Thompson would be a bit of a project, but his upside is so high. Having him work behind Ojabo and Odafe, and if we bring back Houston or JPP, he could develop into somebody that's dominant, like truly dominant, like the next late round edge rusher the Ravens draft, like a Matthew Judon, like a Zadarius Smith. PJ Thompson could be that next guy. I'll go through the list once again. Jalen Hyatt, Kyu Blu Kelly, Iosivas, Kenny McIntosh, BJ Thompson. Let me know your thoughts on the draft. Let me know your drafts and stuff like that. If you have any ideas, hey, maybe you should try and do this in your strategy next time. I can definitely look into that. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.